Hey everyone! Today on the plastic canvas we're going to paint just the base on a group of rioters. From the plastic canvas, and welcome to another, albeit very short, video in this Mansions of Madness miniature painting series. Mansions of Madness is a co-op exploration game where players take on the role of paranormal investigators. Horror-themed game, lots and lots of fun, and being horror-themed, you go up against a couple of baddies, and this group of rioters here is one of them. Now, as you can see, I've already painted them, but I was going to do the base, and I thought, well, seeing as I'm going to be painting, might as well put the camera on just to show how I finish these guys off. So I painted these guys up before I started this channel, but now that I'm going through some of the other ones and painting them, and I'm doing a couple of different things with the bases, I thought, well, these guys need to be done as well so that when they're on the table, they match thematically. So I'm gonna just film myself doing that, and then it's just another video to put up. So all the human sort of shaped minis, the riders included, are getting an Agrellan Earth base. So this one here, Agrellan Earth. So the idea of this is that you paint it on really thick on the base, and then as it dries, it then cracks. So if you leave it unpainted, it will look like dried and cracked earth. But I'm going to be blending in some greys, blacks and whites to make it look like cracked sort of stone or concrete. But yeah, so these guys will get that as well, just so that they tie in with the other human looking minis. So yeah, first step will be to prime the base to get it ready so that I'm not painting this straight onto plastic, and then I'll be putting this on nice and thick, so that it gets a really good crack. I've already done it with a couple of minis, and the ones that have had sort of the best looking result are definitely the ones where I put it on really thick. So yeah, so I'll be going for that. So yeah, so I'll be just putting primer down around their feet, and doing like a bit of a sort of an uneven edge, just so that it gives a bit of an illusion of that that stone effect continuing on beyond where I finish painting. So yeah, so I'm just gonna put that primer down. Just my brush on primer. There's quite a few videos now that I've done where I've mentioned it, and I'm just using one of my older size 4 brushes from my original set of brushes that I bought that are no good anymore. But yeah, I just keep them around to do these sorts of jobs where it doesn't matter if the bristles get a little bit ruined. So yeah, so I'll just put this primer down. And then the next part I won't worry about stopping to talk. I'll just get straight into putting down the Agrellan Earth. I'll be using my basing brush for that, and that'll go on nice and thick, and then I'll come back in after that to have a talk about how I'll finish it off. Alright, so that primer's gone off. You can see there, it's got a bit of a different black to it than the rest of the base. So time now to put the Agrellan Earth on. If this is left unpainted, it just looks like dried cracked earth. But because with the sort of human-looking minis, going for that stony look, I'm then going to paint it with a grey base, and then wet blend in some blacks and some whites. So in the last part of the video I just primed this up, but there is a second one. So there's two groups of riders. So there they are there. I tried to go a little bit of a different colour scheme with each so that, you know, even though mini-wise they're the same, there is a little bit of differentiation. So I'm going to paint up the bases of both of these now and then leave it to dry, which will, so then as it dries it'll crack over time. Now I have at this point painted a few minis with the Agrellan Earth, and with the first couple what I found pretty quickly was that you did get quite a bit of a difference in the amount that it cracked with how thick you put it on. So yeah, for good cracks, put it on thick. If you just want little cracks, put it on thin. So you do have that ability there to play with how much it will actually crack. But yeah, I want to get a good bit of crackage, so it's going to go on pretty thick all over. So yeah, so just going to get into painting that now, just using my basing brush. And yeah, just going to put it on thick, and then we'll come back when it's dried, and then we'll get to painting it. Alright, there we go. So Agrellan Earth painted on, and so that's gotten a bit of variety in thicknesses there, not necessarily deliberate, but we'll see how they come up. Won't mind there if we get some different amounts of cracking going on. But yeah, so I'll leave that for a while now. I'm not actually sure how long it takes to dry. I usually just sort of come back the next day. But yeah, so next step will be after it's cracked, to paint it up to look like some stone. So yeah, I'll start with a grey base and then blend in some blacks and some whites to create a stony look, and then yeah, add a bit of texture, and then this will tie them thematically in with the other human looking minis from the game. So yep, so I'll leave that to dry, and then come back after they've cracked and paint them up. Alright, so that Agrellan Earth there has dried off pretty well, and has done its cracking thing, and then we can see we've got our two lots of Riot guys, and yeah, they're sort of cracked to a pretty similar degree, and yeah, probably this one here has done a better job, especially around the back there. But yeah, looking really good. So now I'm just going to paint them to look like they're on sort of a stony surface. So I'm going to use a grey base, and then just wet blend in some blacks and whites just to add a bit of texture, but also to pick up some of the light that would be hitting. So where there's more of the cracks, I'll work in a bit more white there, just because that's going to be the raised surface. And then yeah, working a bit more black around the feet of the three guys, just to work in a little bit of shadow there, and then obviously sort of out here where more light would be hitting, a little bit more white there as well. And so I'm going to try and, as much as possible, avoid getting paint to go in the cracks, but that's going to be pretty difficult. I have sort of done this technique with some of the other minis, and I haven't really been able to avoid doing that, because I'm not going to spend too long actually painting each individual sort of piece. Inevitably some of the paint's going to go in between, but as much as possible I'll try and avoid that. But I do still want to keep the contrast between the raised surface and then the black underneath. So at the end, I'm just going to take one of my thin brushes and just repaint some of the black in between those cracks, just to keep that contrast. But I'm going to be a little bit selective with it, which is what I've done with some of the other minis, so that it gives your eye sort of something to focus on, and then it'll add an extra little bit of texture to it, because it'll make some of the sections look like they're sticking up a little bit more, even against like say if I work some black into the cracks in this section here, but not so much this section here, it'll make this section look like it's sticking up more than this one, even though both of them are cracked. So yeah, that's the process I'm just going to go through. So grey base, and then blend in some blacks and whites to add some texture, and I'll focus more of the white on the sections where more light will be hitting, black more around the feet for the shadows, and then paint black in between some of the bigger cracks and focus it more in sections so that those sections look like they're sticking up a little bit more, and just build that contrast. So yeah, so just going to go ahead and do that for both of the Riot bases, and yeah, hopefully they come up looking pretty cool. And yeah, just I'm using one of my original brushes, just a size 2. I just keep these ones around for these sorts of jobs where it doesn't matter if the bristles sort of don't get looked after too well. And then yeah, just got some dry and retarder in with the grey and the black and the white, just to give me as long as possible to blend them together. So not mixing any water in, that dry and retarder's taking care of that job. Alright, so with the first one done there, and it's not totally finished, when it is dry I'm going to go back and, like it's pretty dry, but when it's totally dry, I'm going to go back with a little bit more white and just catch a few more of the areas where more of the light would be hitting, just so that it doesn't blend in quite so much and I can build that contrast up a little bit more. But I just thought that might be a good spot to stop, and just so you can sort of see how, like what the starting point is. and then what it kind of ends up looking like. So yeah, really happy with the effect that I've got there. You can see, you know, if you left it unpainted, the sort of effect that you get. So, you know, if you're going for even like a deserty kind of theme, or dirt, something like that, it's great for that. But yeah, good to paint up and perfect for stone and that sort of thing. So yeah, so really happy with how that's looking. Now I'm just going to do the same thing again with this one over here. Okay, so now that the paint on these bases is dry and any more paint that goes on won't just start to blend like what was happening in the last part of the video, I'm just going to just focus a little bit more on just finishing off some of the crack sections, just where I can control the paint a little bit more and just catch more of the edges. I'm not going to spend too long doing it because you know, it's just enough to give the effect. So yeah, not going to spend too long, but just want to catch a few more of those edges, just get a little bit more contrast without it blending so much. And then yeah, then the next step will just be to add our varnish. But yeah, so just going to do that with both of them. So this will be mostly with white and light greys, just picking out the edges a little bit more. And then I'm going to just use some black and one of my thin brushes, my Insane Detail brush probably, and paint between some of the cracks, just to then bring out the contrast even more, and add a bit of definition between even some of the levels of cracks. So, you know, I might put some black in between the cracks in here, but maybe not along here, which will make these cracks look thicker than these ones and like they're sort of sticking up a little bit more. But yeah, so just going to go ahead and do that. Yeah, just focusing on the whites and light greys, and then the black in between the cracks, and I'll do that with both bases. bases are now dry, and they're ready for the last step, which is going to be a matte varnish. But I just wanted to quickly stop just to have a look at them and just the effect that I got by putting the black paint, in some of the cracks. So just spots like here and here, where I put the black paint in between the cracks, it's just brought that contrast out more, and it's just helped to make these sort of stones here, which is the look that I'm going for, look as though they're sticking up a little bit more than where I didn't put the black in between the cracks, like say just in between the feet there, or maybe in the middle there, and yeah, you just sort of see these spots like here and here, where I painted in between those cracks, but I didn't paint in between there, and it just helps to make them stick up a little bit more. Same thing on this base over here, you know, you can see there and there and there as well. It's just helped to build that contrast. So pretty simple way of going about that, but really happy with how they're looking. So yeah, these bases are done. So now I'm just going to do a matte varnish over the whole lot, and I do a varnish because at the moment the outermost exposed layer of the minis is the paint, and the paint is not hard wearing, so getting knocked around in the box or just from general wear and tear from the game, the paint can chip off, whereas a varnish is made to be hard wearing, and it can take those knocks. And the reason I use a matte varnish as opposed to a gloss is just because there are no reflective surfaces anywhere on any of these minis, and so the matte varnish, when it dries, will look exactly the same as these minis do at the moment. I will be getting a gloss varnish because I do have some minis coming up soon where you know, there might be like some open mouths with tongues or some blood and different things like that sort of want to look wet or reflective, so I'll be using them on there, but yeah, just have the matte varnish at the moment. So yeah, so going to do both of these. Just going to bring in just a plastic palette here. Don't use a wet palette for this. This is the varnish here, Vallejo. Just give it a bit of a shake. I've so far with the ones that I've done, I followed along some advice in some videos that I watched that said not to water it down. It does say here on the bottle it can be diluted with water. So far I haven't, and yeah, it's worked really well. You don't need too much of this. Just pretty well two good drops is enough for a mini. These guys are sort of fairly thin, so I'm hoping a couple of drops for each one, but we'll sort of see how we go. 1, 2, and probably something like that should be enough for these guys. So yeah, not watering it down. I'm just going to use one of my older brushes. Yep, that one there, just a size 4. Just one of the ones from my original set that I've kept around for jobs like this, where it doesn't matter if the bristles don't get looked after too well. But yeah, a bit of water on the bristles, but nothing actually going into the paint. So yeah, so just gonna put this all over. One thing I found you do need to be mindful of when putting the varnish on is that you don't let it sit too thick anywhere. Kind of like if you're doing a wash, you don't want it to pull too much in the recesses, because what can happen is that if there's too much of it, it won't actually dry clear. It will have some opaqueness to it. I don't know if opaqueness is a word, but yeah, it does have some reflection to it, and it's not totally see-through, so you do just need to make sure that yeah, it hasn't sat in any recesses too thick. So just need to spread it out, just kind of like if you do with a wash, just go back and make sure it hasn't pulled anywhere. So yeah, so just going to go ahead and do that, make sure it doesn't sit too thickly anywhere, and then when it's dry I'll come back to finish the video off. Just quickly, another thing that the varnish is really good for, there's a little spot here, you might have seen me just fixing it up, where this little stone here came off. Just obviously wasn't quite dried enough, so I've just placed it back in where it's supposed to go, and just by putting the varnish over the top, that varnish is going to form like a solid layer all the way over it, and that will get dried there in place and it won't go anywhere. So that's another good little thing that the varnish does. Sorry, just covers everything up, and yeah, it really just seals everything in place. Alright, so the two bases on our Riot guys are done now. That varnish is dried, and you can see there's no reflection going on there at all. It's straight back to looking as though it's just been painted, but it's now got that good sort of hard wearing outer layer on it, so that it can take a few knocks and things just from general wear and tear from the game. So with that, this albeit very short video is now done. Another couple of Mansions of Madness minis finished. So thank you very, very much for spending some time watching me paint these guys up, even though you didn't see me paint the actual minis themselves. Thanks for watching me paint up the base. If you did like this video where it's just a single aspect of the mini rather than the whole thing, please do let me know in the comments, and then if that's something that you do like, I might try and do a few more of those sorts of videos to mix it up between painting a whole mini and then just painting an aspect of it. But I am sort of trying with these videos to paint minis from start to finish, so that'll go a little bit off what you guys want to see. But yeah, so thanks very, very much for spending some time watching me paint. I really, really do appreciate any time you guys put into watching my videos. It is why I put these videos out there, and yeah, hopefully there's something that you've gotten out of this video, something that you can use in your own painting, whether it might just be, grabbing a texture paint, whether it's a Grell and Earth or something else, or it might be a way of painting the base using some wet blending there to get some different textures, or at the very least you've just simply enjoyed watching me paint these bases. So yeah, please do leave a comment down below, something that you liked about the video, something that you think can be improved, so that I can keep making these videos as good as possible for you guys. I need your feedback to help me do that. Can't do that on my own, so I would really, really appreciate that. And yeah, please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, to keep up to date with when these videos keep coming out. So with all that being said, this is Matt from the Plastic Canvas signing out. Happy painting, everyone. Cheers.